marking out for some nice threads. Working out the best way to pull out the face.
Great. You can relax back.
Thanks. Sticks the needle down like this so we can like an internal stitch. So if I cut my hand open, I have an internal stitch. The collagen builds around the stitch, and then the stitch itself dissolves. It's exactly the same stuff.
And it's over tightened now, right? So you can see kind of the vectors that it's in because it's going to drop.
Yeah.
So you've
like everything else on my body.
So deal with the kind of
So it's like going to be fine and you can sleep on it and everything, but if someone comes up and slams into your face or pushes it, you'll be like...
Car crash material.
Yeah. And so don't worry about that, because as she speaks, that's going to unhitch.
Right.
And it's going to feel like it goes pop, pop, pop in your skin. And it will settle, and it'll be settling into a certain plane in your face where it needs to go. But while it's settling, getting its little barbs into place, sometimes it pricks you like a prickle.
Yep.
And there's all these little hair nerves all over your skin.
Sure.
So sometimes it'll lean on one of those little hair nerves.
Yep.
So sometimes if you just push it a little bit like that, it'll take it off.
Yep.
But if it's too painful, just leave it and you'll find that it settles down.
Yep.
Cool. That's us, Sweet Pea.
Sit forward for me. So how painful do you reckon that was?
No more painful than filler. Probably a little bit less, actually.
So she's beautifully numb. She's got a little hitch there, but as she speaks, that's going to come down. And we're just discussing threads and explain to you how the threads work and what they're made up of and things like that. So Brandy, do you want to start off?
Sure. Well, okay, so there's different types of threads, and the ones that are most commonly used that you'll hear about in the media currently are the surgical dissolving threads. And what they do is they can create a lift in the face, or they can create collagen in the skin. So Stacey's fantastic at them. Stacey, can you tell us a little bit about what they look like?
Okay, so they're blue and they've got little barbs that go all the way around, and there's moulded specially so the barbs are actually in the wire, not attached onto them, not the wire but the material that they're made out of. And the material that they're made out of is, if you cut your hand and you get an internal stitch, the collagen builds around the stitch and the internal stitch dissolves and your hand gets held together. So it's the same material as that, and then we put them down into your face and the little barbs hold them up like this and hold your face up, and they build the collagen down there, and they last about 3 to 4 months, and then they dissolve and the collagen's left, and your face is held up for about 11 to 13 months. And then, because you continue to age, you might need to put another couple in there to hold them up again a little bit more. And every time you do it, it gets better and better.
Exactly. They're fantastic for people that have the beginning signs of aging. So if you're getting a little bit bottom heavy, if you're starting to see a little bit of a shadow around your mouth, if you're starting to get a little bit of a jowl, perfect treatment for that. If you're more advanced though, so let's say that you're coming a little bit later into the game and you've got excess skin, you might be more of a surgical candidate, or you'll have to do the threads plus the laser treatment plus the radio frequency needling. You'll have to start doing mixes of treatments.
Because you really need to get your skin in really good condition for it to be able to hold up. Otherwise it just stretches back down again. So the better condition you have your skin, and the tighter you can get it and the more glowy and everything, the better you start looking and the better your treatments work.
Exactly. Stacey, so can someone who has dermal fillers have threads?
Absolutely. They go really well together actually, because you might have your thread and that will take some of the weight off your face without having to try and fill it up with filler. But so mostly when you work them together, you have the thread and then you put a little bit more filler just to balance out the little bit of volume loss that you might still have, but you don't have to have all the filler to cover up that weight. And so your skin your face looks not pillow faced, but you get that nice lift.
Exactly.
And the support of the final cover with the filler.
Exactly. I think of it like when we're young, we have a pillowcase and a pillow, and then each decade the pillow shrinks, but the pillowcase stays the same size. So if you want the best result, you need to pull the pillowcase up and put a little bit more pillow in there.
Yeah, and then you get the perfect result. I mean, some people don't need both things.
No. It's
but
really, you have to tailor it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might just be that we do some skin treatments first, and then we do the threads. And then you get a really great result, and it will last and hold longer if your skin's in great condition.
Definitely.
Yay! Okay, we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Oh, we were talking about treatments and the safety of having threads and anything around it that a consumer should consider. So what are some of the things, Stacey, that you think someone who's thinking about having threads should ask their treatment provider?
Well, I think you need to know that you've got to be prepared for it. You've got to think about it. It hurts for about a week and 2 days afterwards. You've got to kind of plan your social life so you can handle it. You can go out. People don't really notice you've had anything done. So you don't have you don't look funny and things like that. And it doesn't hurt enough that you can't go to work or things like that. But you really need to have a really good conversation with your technician who's going to do this treatment for you, and find out for you specifically what is the danger for you having the treatment.
Yeah, I agree. So I think it's important to find a treatment provider that is willing to take the time to discuss with you what they think they can achieve with the treatment. Is it going to be one treatment? Is it going to be two treatments? What is the expected outcome?
Yeah.
They should also describe any of the risks or possible complications of a treatment. So you are completely informed going into it. And if they aren't willing to do that, or if they don't have the time, well then
that's not the person.
That's not the person for you.
No.
Exactly. Stacey, what's the number one complication you've seen?
Well, you do get a bit of swelling,
which is normal.
Yeah, which is normal, and you can get bruising, but most of the time when you and I have done them, we haven't really had any bruising.
Not too bad. So people swell for different reasons, and it's usually your own internal response to any type of trauma. So we can't really predict who's going to be someone who swells or how fast that will resolve. But for most people, it's, pretty
it all
quick.
seems to settle down within the first week. You can get little pings for about a month where the little barbs are settling in. There's like a little gap where we set them in, and then they kind of snuggle into that space and sit in there, and you can sort of feel them popping a little bit and settling in, and that can feel a little prickly, like you have all these little nerves, sort of like little hairs all over your face, and as it kind of settles in, it might lean on one, and if you just give it a little massage, it takes it off. The reason I keep touching my face is I recently had them, and I can feel them here. So I keep going, oh yes, I can feel mine. But after a while you can't feel anything, and someone can hit your face and you don't feel anything, it doesn't hurt, it totally calms down and it's fine. But for the first week it can be a little bit scary.
Yeah, I mean, everything new can be quite a bit scary. Your treatment provider will coach you through it, and any questions that you have, they should be able to answer and, let you know, oh, this is expected or this isn't expected. One of the things I think that you need to consider when you're doing this, like you said, is your week following it. So if you've got like the Auckland Marathon planned the next day, probably not a good idea. But if you're going to work the next day, probably okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.